COVID-19 news tonight. Jamaica recorded 60 additional cases yesterday and 5 deaths, taking the total of infections to 49,795 and total deaths to 1,042. According to reports from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the new cases comprise 31 females and 29 males within the ages of 10 months and 90 years. The cases were recorded in St. Anne with 17 cases. St. Catherine and Kingston and St. Andrew recorded 9 cases each. St. James, 8 cases. Westmoreland recorded 5 cases. St. Mary recorded 4 cases. Clarendon, 3. Hanover and St. Elizabeth recorded 2 cases each, while St. Thomas recorded 1 case. Deaths include 2 males from St. James aged 42 and 60 years. A 50-year-old female from St. James, whose death was previously classified as under investigation. A 63-year-old female from Manchester and a 69-year-old male from St. Mary. The country recorded 195 recoveries, taking the recovery total now to 29,130, while there are 19,256 cases currently active. In other news tonight, Prime Minister Andrew Holness yesterday evening announced the relaxation of COVID-19 measures amidst a sharp decline in coronavirus cases in Jamaica. Mr. Holness told the House of Representatives that COVID-19 infections have fallen from an average of approximately 515 cases daily at the peak in March, when more than 800 cases were recorded on some days, to just over 50 daily cases so far in June. But while acknowledging that infections have fallen, the Prime Minister stressed that Jamaicans must remain vigilant, especially since only a small percentage of the population has been vaccinated against the respiratory virus. Chief among the relaxed measures is curfew hours that will be reduced effective July 1 and will run from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. Mondays to Saturdays and on Sundays from 6 p.m. to 5 a.m. The new curfew hours will remain in effect until August 11. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Holness also announced special measures for the reopening of the entertainment sector. Here is Javon Thomas with more on this story.
In yesterday's sitting of the House of Representatives, Prime Minister Andrew Holness outlined the new measures for the reopening of the entertainment sector. According to the Prime Minister, 2 categories of events will be allowed.
1, small events, that is to say, events with no more than 100 persons in total, including organizers and support personnel. And 2, large events, meaning events over 100 persons. Small events will generally include outdoor concerts, outdoor parties, round robins, festivals, community events, corporate mixers, handing over and groundbreaking ceremonies, and other events of this nature. But indoor events, meaning these events that are held in a covered area with a controlled entry, we have put a cap on the number of persons who can attend small events indoors. This is determined as 60% of the usable square footage, not including bathrooms and kitchens, divided by 40 square feet, which is the social distancing provision, or 100 persons, whichever is low.
Prime Minister Holness noted, however, that large events will have to be approved by the government.
So when large events are applied for, the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport will play a supportive role. That is, they will meet with the promoters and they will go through all the checklist so that they are not applying blindly. The application will then go to the Ministry of Local Government. ODPEM will receive it, and ODPEM will meet with the police, the Ministry of Health, Fire, and the municipality. And a decision will be made as to whether or not the event as proposed will be allowed. So the Ministry of Health up front would set the protocols, and then when the application is made, the Ministry of Health will be a part of the review team in terms of giving the approval.
He also added that indoor theaters and cinemas will now be allowed to operate.
Indoor theaters and cinemas will be allowed to open with the same size-based capacity limitation, slightly different in how it is phrased. One person for every 40 square feet, or 70% of seated capacity, whichever is low. So, Madam Speaker, theaters and cinemas usually have fixed seating capacity. So you would go by your seating capacity and take 70% of that. Of course, there are other established protocols about allowing households to sit together, spacing between persons, hand sanitization when entering, all those other protocols which are in the RMA. We would advise the theater operators and the cinema operators to follow those protocols.
Meanwhile, worship services will now be allowed to host up to 70% of the venue's capacity.
The maximum number of persons physically present, allowed to be present, will be determined as 70% of the capacity, which is calculated based on one person for every 40 square feet of the designated worship area. So, in effect, there is a 1 to 40, which allows for the social distancing calculation. And that will give you your total capacity, and we're saying you can use up to 70% of that total capacity.
I'm Javon Thomas, reporting for Mello TV News.
Still making the news tonight, the Maypen Hospital in Clarendon has received 2 additional defibrillators at a cost of $500,000 through a kind gesture from Chairman of the Airports Authority of Jamaica, AAJ, the Honorable William Billy Shaguri. Mr. Shaguri, who is retiring as Chairman of the AAJ, asked that funds set aside for his send-off celebration be used to equip the hospital with vital machines. Speaking at the handing over of one of the machines at the Ministry of Transport and Mining in St. Andrew yesterday, Minister of Transport and Mining Robert Montague said the other machine is in transit and will be delivered to the institution shortly. Now, the minister, in lauding the chairman, who is also Custos of Clarendon, said he has served the authority for more than 15 years, first as a board member, then as deputy chairman. Still tonight, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, has welcomed the announcement made by her counterpart, His Excellency Marcelo Ebrard, Secretary for Foreign Relations of Mexico, that a donation will be made to the government and people of Jamaica of 35,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Jamaica sincerely welcomes this generous offer from the United States of Mexico. It comes at a critical juncture and will be central to expanding our vaccination program, which, as the public is aware, has been impacted by global vaccine supply constraints. We're pleased that this is yet another example of the vibrancy of relations between Jamaica and Mexico, and it bears witness to the importance of South-South and regional cooperation during these very challenging times.
As we continue with the news tonight, opposition spokesman on transport Michael Phillips says he has written to the Minister of Transport and Mining, Robert Montague, urging him to consider a mechanism to cushion the effect of the new toll rates on the commuting public. Mr. Phillips stated that he wrote to the minister yesterday regarding the notice of intention to vary toll under the Toll Roads Act published in the newspapers over the signature of the Transport Minister dated June 14, 2021. He says he was fully aware of the provisions of the Act and the clauses in the tolling policy agreement, including Schedule 15 of the concession agreement, which permits an annual application for an increase in the toll tariffs. However, he questioned the timing of the minister's intention to approve such a significant increase of 10% at this time. Mr. Phillips said, quote, "The people of Jamaica, particularly the residents of Portmore, are still suffering from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, and many are not even back to full salaries as during the lockdown, some companies cut wages and emoluments to maintain staff. As a result, affordability is an issue for residents, whether using private or public transport." End quote. The opposition spokesman said although the minister had no power to delay either annual reviews or orders by the toll authority, he has nonetheless called on him to devise an approach to cushion the severe impact on the commuting public before the new rates take effect on the first weekend of July 2021. In the meantime, Transport Minister Robert Montague is insisting that any public passenger vehicle must have a license to operate in Jamaica, and persons who operate without a license will be prosecuted.
But you have to. In Jamaica, the law is very clear. As long as you take up and set down a passenger in exchange for a fare in Jamaica, you are required to have a license. If you go into a vehicle and you use it to take you from point A to point B and you pay a fare, that vehicle, that operator must be licensed. If you are renting your car, you must have a rent-a-car license in order to rent a car, and you must have the requisite insurance. If you don't, the Transport Authority and the police will find you and will prosecute you.
The minister was responding to questions regarding whether white plate Uber operators will be prosecuted. The minister, who was answering questions from journalists about what legislation Uber will operate under, urged the public to only use registered vehicles.
And I warn members of the public, do not travel with robots, because if there's an accident, there's nothing to get. You have licensed operators, you have platform-based operators, Jamaicans. You have 1876 taxi, you have Get There, you have RideJamaica.com, and last week we launched, in association with the owners, 2 other platform-based apps, Red Plate and Arrive.
In other news tonight, business development firm Carbine Capital Investments has committed $1 million to support the export development program Export Max 3. The program, which is managed by JAMPRO, the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, JMEA, and the Jamaica Business Development Corporation, JBDC, is aimed at increasing Jamaica's export sales and bringing more than 40 Jamaican companies to new international markets. Carbine has a special interest in enabling SMEs to access larger markets, both domestically and internationally. Now, this interest aligns with Export Max's goals and has led to a natural partnership with the program. Co-founder of Carbine Capital Investments, Rajiv Ebanks, said Carbine recognizes the positive impact of the Export Max program on generating employment opportunities and foreign exchange earnings for the country, and has committed sponsorship to this valuable initiative. JAMPRO's president, Diane Edwards, thanked Carbine Capital Investments for their commitment and said that entities like Carbine are critical to the Export Max program. And those are some of the stories making news. We will return with other stories as NCB Foundation has announced the Dr. Rickard Allen Scholarship in memory and honor of the industry stalwart and his indelible contribution since joining the company in 2002. And the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, in collaboration with the Banana Board, has launched a Planting Pilot Project, PPP, which aims to establish 10 hectares or 25 acres of irrigated plantain production. But first, we'll go to a break and then join Christopher Scott with the latest in sports.